Helen Humphreys is the author of many acclaimed books, and her latest novel is based on a real-life murder that happened in Saskatchewan in 1947. Rabbit Foot Bill has already been optioned for a TV series, and it's the type of book you don't want to put down. Joining us with more is Helen from Kingston, Ontario. Nice to see you this morning.
Hi, good morning.
So this novel is based on the memories of Dr. Hugh Lefebvre, who witnessed a murder as a child. How did you come to learn his story?
He approached me when I was doing a reading in Perth, Ontario, I think probably a dozen years ago now, or maybe even longer. And he was interested in having me help him write the story down for himself, which we did sort of over a period of time. And then at a certain point, I think we sort of mutually decided that maybe I should take a run at it as well. And that's what I did. It's based on his memories, but he was a child, so some of the memories, when I actually started to do the research, some of the memories weren't accurate. But in the end, I ran with his story because it was the more interesting story.
What were you thinking when he was first telling you this story? It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, I loved the character of Rabbit Foot Bill and the fact that he was a real person and he was known by that name and he sold rabbit's feet in town and did odd jobs, and he lived in a hillside that he made this sort of burrow for himself, I suppose, in a hillside outside of town, and lived rough that way. I was really interested in that character. I found him.
Interesting. Yeah, so interesting. You talk about memory and Dr. Lefebvre's memory. What did you learn about memory while writing this book?
Well, I learned that it's really unreliable and unpredictable. And there were certain things, I'll give you one instance. There were certain things that Hugh remembered. He remembered very clearly a line of dialogue that was spoken after the murder, that when I went to the court transcripts, I found that that line of dialogue was actually something that Rabbit Foot Bill said. So he remembered this particular line of dialogue. But then he remembered Bill himself as being a man in his prime, around 38, 40 years old. And in actuality, Bill was 73 years old when he committed the murder. So that shows the sort of vagary of memory, that something very specific can be remembered and something that seems, that it would be more obvious can be forgotten or changed or just remembered differently.
Dr. Lefebvre became superintendent of the Weyburn Mental Hospital. Much of your novel focuses on the facility. I mean, it's a massive facility. It was a massive facility. Why did that make a great setting for this book?
I set the book not at the time. Hugh became superintendent after the time period that I'm actually writing about, but I set it around the time when they were doing the LSD drug trials at the Weyburn. It was the first place that they were doing these trials, and I found the whole process very interesting because it was, they were treating patients, but the doctors themselves were also taking the drug alongside the patient, and it was very much a kind of mutual experience. So I found that whole process a really interesting one to write about.
And they were known, for their treatment of, that LSD treatment. What was the takeaway from those decades, really, and successes from that type of treatment, or perhaps not successes?
Yeah, I think the thing that happened was that LSD moved out into the larger world and into the kind of psychedelic 60s, and it wasn't regulated in the way that it had been in the medical establishment. So a lot of the good of those experiments was sort of lost into that wider context. But microdosing is becoming a more known about thing these days, and more popular. People are thinking about it again. So I think it's kind of swinging back around, perhaps.
And when we focus on sort of the idea of healing, why was it important to you to explore that process of healing after trauma?
Yeah, what I'm impressed with, it was just the resiliency that people outside my story, but also people sort of in my story, that they demonstrate trying to heal. It's quite moving, I find, the way in which people try to heal themselves from trauma of any sort. And I just wanted to look at that and explore that in a novel. And this setting and this story seemed the right novel in which to explore those themes.
Helen, you've been working on this book for almost a decade, 10 years. It's been a very personal experience. How long?
I think over 10 now.
Over
actually.
10 years.
Yeah.
So I imagine that's such a personal experience for you. And now the book is available for people to read. What's it like sort of going, okay, here you go, everybody. Here's the work that I've been focused on for so long.
Yeah, it's a strange experience. And especially now, of course, during COVID, when I'm not actually seeing readers face to face, everything is done via screen. So Yeah, it's a bit surreal. You sit with something so long, and then it almost doesn't feel real when it actually sort of becomes real and goes out there. So
You know what?
it's and
That sums up this year, I think. It almost doesn't feel real in a way,
yeah,
doesn't it,
that's
Helen?
right. Yeah,
It is an
that's true.
incredible read. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for watching. If you like this, be sure to subscribe here.
And you can check out more Your Morning videos right here.